Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. You are watching School Psych Podcast. My name is Rachel. I'm a school psychologist in Maryland. I'm hoping that everybody's doing really well. Lots of germs out there. I know last podcast, which was like 2 weeks ago, I was feeling under the weather, tested for flu A. And I still feel a little bit like congestion and just like not myself. So it is going around. And I know now we don't necessarily have like a CDC warning us about these types of things. So everybody, I hope you got your vaccinations. Hope that, I feel like in the meetings is where I get sick from the other adults, from the teachers that refuse to stay home because they're workaholics. And so they bring all the illness. I feel like the children don't give it to me as much. It's those IEP meetings. I'm going to start wearing my mask, I think, a little bit more. Let's see. I also wanted to mention Eric is not here with us today. He is off representing at NASP. So he's having a fun time, or he will be. I think he's in the air right now. A long journey across the country. So we're excited. And anybody who is at NASP, like maybe put a comment in or head into NASP. Let us know what you're up to and what you're looking forward to. We'd love to hear. And then I'm trying to think, there was maybe one other thing. I'm going to drop a link in the comments in the discussion in the chat there. Something that I've been looking at, and I'm sure that everybody else is kind of mindful of, the changes in government and the downsizing. The Department of Education, I think, is on everybody's minds. IES, which is a great resource that has What Works Clearinghouse and lots of amazing educational research information sources and whatnot, and I use them frequently. I'm worried that they're going to go away. I'm going to drop a link in that chat there so that you all can think about maybe downloading some of their practice guides. I love their practice guides, and you can download them in PDF format. So snatch those up on different evidence-based interventions, behavioral and academic and whatnot. So snatch those up before they're all gone. But I'm really excited about this podcast and about Terry joining us again. And I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca, who's going to talk about how to participate and introduce our guest. Rebecca.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Hopefully you are joining live, and you can log right into your YouTube account and comment right alongside the video. We will be looking for your comments and questions along the YouTube video at any time that you watch it. So even if you're not watching live, please feel free to comment. The comments sync up with the place in the video, and we'll be able to respond to those over time. Also, if you're listening on iTunes or Podbean or Stitcher or Spotify, wherever you get podcasts, please send us a comment on any of our social media pages. We're still on Facebook, School Psych, Your School Psychologist, and the School Psych podcast page. You can send us a message or comment along under the post for tonight's episode. And we're also trying out Blue Sky. It seems like a really friendly place. And I'm tweeting every time we have a podcast on Blue Sky. I think it's called tweeting. I don't know if they've decided on what to call it yet. But please look for me there. So I'm at Becca Comiz, COMIZ, at bsky.social. So please find, and Rachel's there too. I think she's Mrs. Donnelly, pre-K 12. Yes, at Blue Sky. So look for us. We're really excited tonight to have our guest, Terry Molony. She is, among other things, a longtime school psychologist, a leader at NASP and many organizations. That's how Rachel and I met her, through the communications committee. And she's also the National School Psychologist of the Year in Pennsylvania for 2000, not in Pennsylvania, in the United States. I'm so sorry. Yes, she's from Pennsylvania, but she was the National School Psych of the Year for 2018, NASP's National School Psych of the Year. So she's the big kahuna. And we're so proud and excited to have her. She's just wonderful. She's been not on our show for a while. So I'm going to let you, Terry, introduce the rest of your amazing bio, because it's long and beautiful, and I've already messed it up once. So I'm sorry about that. Please tell us, Terry, tell us all about all you do.
That's so sweet. What a sweet little intro. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thanks for having me tonight. I really love talking about motivational interviewing. It's such a fabulous topic. But yeah, before everybody, we went live, we were talking about how we haven't really connected in a bunch of years, and it's so fun to see my old friends Rachel and Rebecca here. Yes, and actually, I was the National School Psychologist of the Year in 2014. I think you might have said 18. I didn't want, yeah, and I was the New Jersey. I'm not Pennsylvania. I'm New Jersey in 2013. But I was a school psychologist in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, for lots and lots of years. And I loved working in the elementary school the most, but I was at all the different levels. And I retired from the school district about 3.5 years ago. And but I'm an adjunct at PCOM, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, and the school psych program. And I was telling Rachel before Rebecca came on that I actually have an assignment for my students to get them to learn about your school psych podcasts, because you guys are amazing that you do this for all these years, and you present such great information. So it's very topics to everybody. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I'm really excited to talk about motivational interviewing. So if you guys have any comments or questions, just please, type them in the chat box, or Rachel or Rebecca, please feel free to join in too, because I do know that Rebecca is an expert in motivational interviewing also. Yes, I always hate thinking of myself as an expert, but we've read a lot about it and love to practice it. And I think that you can just use it every day, and in every way, in your professional life, certainly, even with little kids, and also in your interactions with people. Like, I'll notice sometimes that I'm with people, and they're trying to make a decision, and so somebody's like trying to talk the other person into something, and the person is not getting talked into it. They keep saying resistant things. No, I don't want to do that. And then when the first person stops trying to talk them into it and says, okay, sounds like you don't want to do that, the first person said, well, I'm not saying I don't want to do that. I just want to think about it more. So that's sort of what like the everyday way of using motivational interviewing, I think, is. And it's basically, the way I think about it, like a conversation that you have with somebody that helps them to figure out what they want to do about a certain situation. And so you just listen to what they're saying, you affirm their efforts, and you choose what you want to reflect back to them. Reflections are a really big piece of motivational interviewing, but it's not like you just reflect back whatever they say. It actually can be exhausting, because you're really listening for those nuggets to reflect back to them that are going to move them in a different direction than just venting about a problem. And this is something I was thinking about this summer, because Rebecca, remember you texted me over the summer,
Yes.
and Rebecca was just like saying, I was in this counseling session, and I was doing some motivational interviewing, and this happened, and I reflected this. What do you think about that? And I was like, and I thought to myself, that was a really beautiful reflection. But you also could reflect this, you could reflect that. So you're choosing what you want to reflect based on how you think the conversation should go. And I just wanted to say this too about motivational interviewing in a general way. It's really being done like all over the world now. At the beginning of the school year, I was involved in a project where we were doing some virtual trainings for people in the Ukraine, mental health practitioners and university trainers, about using motivational interviewing with their clients and the students that they're teaching. And it was just so amazing, and that how interested they were. It was a project that PCOM was doing with Temple and a health organization that I got involved in. And it made me think about motivational interviewing. Like, we were supposed to focus on depression, motivational interviewing and depression. And I was just thinking, like, I don't know that you really can do motivational interviewing about depression, that your town is being bombed and blown up, because it's about behavior change, motivational interviewing. And but then maybe what you could do it on are some of the symptoms of depression. Like maybe if someone is self-medicating with by drinking. So it really just made me think about motivational interviewing in a different way. And I really think that it's not just going to be a panacea for all different kinds of problems, because it's about helping people to change their behaviors by not what you think they should change their behaviors about, but by asking them questions so that they can increase their intrinsic motivation. Or you're trying to help them figure out, do they have intrinsic motivation to change? So that's the framework for it, the way I think of it. And I always like to show this picture. This happens to be I call it my desk, but it's actually 2 tables at my school where I used to work. And okay, for the drama of it, we did make it look a little worse. I had 2 interns at the time, but it usually did look pretty much like this. And so when we think about motivational interviewing and we're thinking about working with students about changing their negative behaviors, we just have to recognize how difficult changing can be, and how the way we interact with them is going to either help to motivate or not motivate. And so this picture, when I do presentations in person, I say, look at this picture. What would you shout out to me? What would you say if you weren't an enlightened school psychologist? What would you say? Rachel, Rebecca, what would you say to me if you didn't know me and how hardworking I am?
I would say, Terry, an organized desk can create an organized mind.
Exactly. How judgy, Rebecca, right? Don't judge me.
That's funny, because I was looking at it thinking, this looks very similar to my own desk. So I would say, you know what, this looks just fine. This is good. This works for me.
Yes. And so I know Rebecca doesn't really mean that. She's going along with it too. But teachers would come in and say, oh my God, Terry, look at your desk. Here, let me help you. And what I would say is, no, thanks. I know where everything is. And so any of the comments that they would come in to help me, I would resist them, because it just made me dig my heels in. And actually my friends that did know, Rachel, perhaps you're like this too, I bet you are, that amongst all the clutter, you know exactly where everything is. And so we would have a 5-second rule. They'd count to 5 and I could find out what I needed. So it just really was not that important to me for me to keep my desk clean, because I was more focused on, trying to work with teachers and kids and parents. And it just made me really annoyed if people commented on my messiness. So I think it's helpful for us all, though, to think about a situation that, it might help us to change. Okay, would I like to have my desk be neat? Yeah, but it's not worth my effort to make it happen. But I think that it's nice to think about something that you might want to change and how difficult it is, and how the way people respond to you will maybe help you to change or not to change. Because actually I had my friends, we did little videos, and I just said to them, my friend teachers came in and said, say what you would say. And they all said different things, kind of on the line of Rebecca said. And then the one person came in and she's like, oh, Terry, you work so hard. You are so busy. Your desk looks like you work so hard, but if you ever want me to help you, I'd love to. And that made me, I was like, oh, I felt supported. Because what happened was they would activate psychological reactants in me when they said the other things, which makes someone dig in their heels. So when we're working with a student and it's so obvious to us what they should do, and how even what the negative things that they're doing is getting them in trouble, they don't like the consequences, it's so easy to change. But the more we suggest how they could change, the more they're probably going to dig their heels in. And that's what psychological reactance is, increasing the likelihood for their negative behaviors based on what we say. But why do we do that? Why do we try to tell people what to do? Because we love them and we want to help them. And it seems like it should be helpful, but it's really not. So there's this thing called the writing reflex, where we have all the best of intentions to help them, but the way we interact can really, really make a difference. And so that's what I want us to talk about, how to, get into the right way to react, to help that move them along. And so this is just a little, I'm not going to go through all these slides in detail, but I just wanted to kind of have a little bit of a framework about this. MI kind of started from the substance abuse research, because they found that confrontational therapists had clients that didn't come back, but substance abuse clients who had a kind of a Rogerian type therapist often came back. And there were like these giant meta-analyses where they discovered this. And so that was where MI started, that you can really help people change if you are empathetic to what they're going through, and you accept them through for who they are, and you just are asking them questions to get them to think about what's going right and going wrong in their life. And actually people change for all different reasons, and I'm not going to go through each of these, but if you're interested, you can look up those things and find out what they are. But has anybody ever decided, I'm going to stop smoking, I'm just going to stop right now, I have no idea why this is the moment, but I'm just going to stop, and they stop. And then other people would be like, I'm going to stop smoking, this is the moment, and they stop, but then they start the next day. But the good thing about motivational interviewing is it's almost like kind of like a gambler philosophy. Maybe this time it'll work. You can always be hopeful that maybe this time it will work.
Yeah. I wanted to jump in on that a minute, Terry, because what you're saying about the active ingredients, or what's effective in helping people change, is so interesting to me. I'm reading one of Bill Miller's books on effective psychotherapy, and he talks about these Carl Rogers principles and how accurate empathy is one thing across different kinds of interventions that has a really powerful effect on whether the person changes. And I think that's what I texted you that day. I don't remember the specifics, but I was listening to a client. I reflected what they said. I think I reflected it accurately, but I put the kind of reasons to not change at the end. He kind of gave me reasons he wanted to change and reasons that he didn't want to change, that he was kind of happy doing the thing that really wasn't working for him.
Yeah.
And when I reflected it, I think I did it in the wrong order, because then he started talking more about why, yeah, that's right. And that's why I don't really want to, and that's what I was asking you about. But it's accurate empathy in itself is a hard concept when you're talking quickly and you want to help.
Right. That's why it's exhausting, because you're really listening carefully, and whatever you're reflecting back is going to have the person talk more about that usually. So if you're reflecting back the wrong thing for them to talk about, not change talk. Yeah. I think it was something about that's not important to me. That was what you had texted about. Like, he had mentioned all these problems, but he wasn't working on this problem. And you were like, oh, that's not important to you. And so, something like that. And so maybe say, yeah, that's not important to me because of this, or this, or this. And again, I don't know if that was like a wrong reflection, because that might be true. And it was, I think, like a beginning session where you were trying to make your plan for where to go. So I don't
goals.
Yeah. So I guess I was just going to say there might not be any wrong reflections, but maybe like if you keep saying the same like reflections that make the person dig their heels in more over and over and over again. But sometime if you make a reflection like that and they dig their heels in, you might just be like, you've learned something. like you've learned why, or something like that. But I think this slide I have here about lots of times we're saying like, why isn't this person motivated to do this? Why isn't this kid motivated to do their homework? Why isn't this kid motivated to do this, to have better behavior? But I think this is almost like the accurate empathy. Like you're looking at who they really are. What are they motivated for? And you're like empathizing kind of with that, not trying to change them. You're like accepting them at that moment, who they are. And I think about a little student who was in 3rd grade who her grandfather had died, and I guess he had driven the kids to school, and so she would come to school an hour late every day, and her teacher would be like, I can't believe it. She is coming. I'm going to call her Jasmine. Jasmine comes to school late every single day. She's got to get her act together. And like, I'm thinking to myself, this kid has walked to school like over a mile because she would miss the bus. So she was over a mile from school. So she is really motivated to get to school. And so like that's like her connection with people, and highlighting that to the teacher, then say, yeah, it's really awful that she's coming late, but look how motivated she is to come to school. And then we have to help her with a plan on how she's got to get up, figure out something to get up earlier. And it turned out that the grandfather actually was the primary caretaker, and it was a much bigger loss for her than what everybody thought. But looking at what people are doing like right, and how they're motivated for those things, and affirming that's I think what makes a difference. And when you said the accurate empathy, honestly, when you said that, I connect it with when I told you earlier about the picture, and that Laura was the teacher that was empathetic to me. I felt when you said the word accurate, I thought she got it, and I was like, yeah, I do wish my desk didn't look like this. Like I could admit it, because somebody was really trying to understand me and expressing value for what my goals were about working very hard. Yeah, so those are all the right things, and you have to know the stage of change that the person is in. And so this is Prochaska and DiClemente's work that I never learned about when I was in school, but then I realized it's because I went to college before they came up with this model. So I've learned about it after. So I don't know if people really learn about this in college, but it doesn't seem as though a whole lot of people years ago used to know about it. But if someone is in the pre-contemplation stage where they don't even think they have a problem, there's really no hope in helping them to change. You've got to ask them questions to get them to, we say, create the discrepancy, like to figure out how what they're doing is not working for them. But telling them that isn't how you do it. It's asking them questions about like their goals or their dreams or, those kinds of things. But there's different strategies that you would use with people when they're in these different stages. And pre-contemplation is where they don't even think they have a problem. And I think that's probably a lot of the kids that we work with. And I'm telling you, I think it's the relationship that is going to help them to open up with you to then explore maybe there is a problem. But if you're just coming in as a confrontational person, you have to do this. Your life would be better if you would just do this. It's not hard to do, like all those kinds of things makes people activates their psychological reactance. And then the contemplation stage is where they're saying, I kind of have a problem, but I just don't know what to do about it. I just don't think I can do anything. And then the preparation stage is where they're saying, I do have a problem, and now I think I can take these steps to try and improve. And maintenance is when it's going right, and relapse is if you come back. Oh yeah, we're missing the action in there too. So these are just the descriptions of those stages. I'm kind of going fast through these because I really just wanted to talk about some of the reflections later and a couple of the strategies. But I just think, and I was looking at my slides. This is like a 3-hour presentation that I took a whole bunch of slides out of. I'm like, this is so important. This is so important. It's so hard, to prioritize. But somebody must be ready, willing, and able to change in order for them to change. And we say ready, willing, and able, but willing is like that something is important enough for them to change. It's got to be important enough. That's the first big thing. And so this is just like a little graphic of that kind of a thing. Like, so this person who thinks, let's see, this is low to high importance, go in this direction. So this person is saying, oh, it's important for me to do my homework, and I know just when I can do it. And so you don't have to do motivational interviewing on them. That's fine. This person who says, yeah, it is important to do this, but I just don't know how to do it. That's where you're going to be able to do a lot of motivational interviewing kinds of techniques. And this, it's harder if the person thinks it's not important. That's the first goal, is where you have to help them to decide if it is important enough for them to change.
I imagine too that, as school psychologists, I mean, private practitioners might have somebody coming in because they want to change and they want to do therapy and they value that. As school psychologists, sometimes we get them on our caseload and they're not always the most, it might be the parent that wants them to change, or the teacher, or they're just, the IEP team put counseling on. And so you have to, do that, and they might not want to be there. So I feel like that's so hard. And that makes sense that your first goal should be like trying to build that desire.
Exactly. And that's why I say that the relationship is going to be really important. And if you just start off by talking about how they have to change, that's not going to work. But if you start off and they get the feeling that you care about them, then they might be vulnerable to tell you how, their life isn't so great because of this. And that's kind of like, I think, the little door that you want to open up. So these bold things are really important. There's when you're having this conversation, you want to emphasize change talk. That's what you want to reflect back. And so there's like resistance talk, where they're just venting and complaining, and change talk, where they're saying something about they need to change, they want to change, there's a reason to change. Once they're saying they have the ability or their commitment, you don't have to do motivational interviewing. You can do other kinds of stuff there. But it's not always obvious, those little nuggets of the change talk. So I have just a couple of examples here, and I'm not going to go through all of them, of course. But like, if a teacher says, my class is out of control, I need to teach the standards, but it seems like I don't have any time for instruction this year with all the students who are off task. Now, does it sound like that teacher wants to change? Like, not really. It sounds like she's like negative and she wants to pull her hair out. So if I reflect back, oh, your class is out of control, she's going to say, yeah, nobody does anything I tell them to do. Da-da-da-da-da. Or, if I say, oh, you don't have any time for instruction? No, they're just misbehaving. So this is what I mean. It's like what we reflect back is going to either get the person still in the resistance talk. But if you say something like, wow, you sound really frustrated. You sound like you really want to teach those kids. Yes, I want it. And she says, I need to teach the standards. So I'm taking that a little bit further and say, you really want to teach those kids? Yes, I really want to teach them. It's just hard. Oh, I know it is. It is so hard. Sounds really, really hard and frustrating. Tell me about what you want to teach them. And so then they go into this other, and now they're thinking, they're getting their positive psychology, chemistry going, and they're starting to feel a little bit more hopeful. But did you see how if you just even say that, it's going to get the conversation going in a different way? And like that next one, I wish I knew how to help Johnny, but he's not going to change no matter what I do. Like right off the bat, it doesn't sound like that teacher, thinks anything's going to work. But I would say, wow, you really want to help Johnny. Oh, yes, I want to help him. He's got his whole life ahead of him. I just, and so when she says she wants to help him, she's saying her desire to change her behaviors in order to help him. And those are the ways that you reflect back. And so, again, I'm not going to go through all those examples, but I think you get what I mean. Like these are examples of what kids might say. Ms. Jones hates me. I just wish she would leave me alone. And, and so then I might say, wow, I bet you wish you could figure out a way she could leave you alone. Yeah, I wish I could figure that out. And then you can kind of start to brainstorm. Whereas if you reflect it back, Miss Jones hates you. She's like, yeah. Or you think Miss Jones hates you. Yeah, she hates me. She does this, she does this, she does this. I think it's so obvious, but I don't think that a lot of people actually reflect back the right kinds of things. And one thing I want to say too is that I don't even know if I modeled it correctly, but when you make those reflections, you don't really state them like a question. You state them as a fact. But if you mess up a little bit and you have the spirit of MI, I think that you're going to be okay with that, because the spirit of MI is just this idea of helping to listen for change, talk, and move it along in that way.
I can
Rebecca? Yeah.
I can see so many well-meaning adults with the writing reflex jump in. Well, how about if you talk to me? Have you tried talking to Mrs. Jones or whatever? Like it seems like that could be, it's maybe more so from parents, because as parents, to see our kids in distress is so difficult, and we want to jump in and give them a solution. But like you said, often that's met with resistance or just doubles down on the problem.
Yeah, or they're not even ready for it. So okay, I'm so glad you just said that too, because I meant to say this earlier on. I don't really see us in schools as doing like an MI session for 50 minutes or 30 minutes, straight MI the whole time. So we're going to like fade in and out of it and do some problem solving and some other kinds of interventions and strategies. And they make the point with MI that the answers are supposed to be coming from the client, but sometimes the client might be so confused and not really know where to start. So you can make some suggestions, but you wouldn't do that like right at the beginning. And you would ask first, like, wow, I have some ideas about how we could get Miss Jones to like stop bugging you. Would you like to hear them? And these are really important principles. Again, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but just this rolling with resistance. When you hear the person digging their heels in and arguing against change, you are going to take a sip of water or something like that. Or I use the bite my tongue method, because that's when you want to kind of say, well, no, but if we look at it this way or something, but you're going to roll with the resistance. And there's some strategies on one of the later slides that we're going to talk about for that. See, I just couldn't take those slides out. I wasn't going to talk about them, but I just couldn't take them out. I'm sorry. But Rebecca, this is, I think, relates to kind of what you were saying too, that there's these roadblocks to communication that I really, when I saw this, like, I think I'm a very empathetic person and I was a pretty good therapist. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I am guilty of a couple of these things. And how are they roadblocks to communication? But I don't know, do either of you feel that you're guilty of any of them? I mean, I don't think we shame or ridicule or name call, but which ones might you say?
Definitely persuading with logic. I love a logical argument, and I feel like if I could just get a child or a teen to see, from a neutral perspective, the logic of what they could do or what they're doing and how it's not working. But yeah, that's a very tempting one to me.
Isn't it? Because it seems so obvious too, lots of times, right? Yeah. Rachel, did you want to say anything? Or
I mean, yeah, I feel like, and I work in elementary, and I feel like a lot of my sessions are very kind of skills based. Like, oh, we need you to learn a coping skill because like you're blowing up in the classroom. And so we're going to practice the skill today. It's deep breathing, or we're going to practice this other skill, and we're going to build your tool belt and all the things. And so, I guess I'm more like directly like teaching these kind of skills instead of kind of this open. But I like how you said how it can kind of fade in and out, because I
Yes.
can see how like that can set the stage for some of the, and so I saw ordering or directing or commanding, and I'm hoping that to my kids I'm not coming off as ordering type of things, but I'm definitely like, this is how you do it. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's different kinds of things like that skill building, that and there's a place for that. That's really important. Kids need to be taught those like social skills. MI is not going to teach kids social skills, but it might help the kid become motivated that they want to learn social skills because they want to have friends. Yeah. I feel like the reassuring, sympathizing, consoling, and maybe agreeing, approving, and praising were some of my roadblocks. And, it kind of like makes people feel pressure sometimes. And there's just one thing that I think that we're probably like very good at what we do, but it's always good to just check ourselves and really not like, I think I'm very good at like understanding what people tell me, or like I have intuition, but I could be wrong a lot of times. And so it really, humbles me when I'm wrong. And there's like this little exercise that we're obviously not going to have time to do, but like I might say, I'm a very organized person. And if you haven't seen my desk, what might you think that I meant by that? It's like there's the exercises somebody would say, do you mean that do you want to take a stab at it, Rebecca?
Yeah, that you have a plan and you write things down and you keep yourself to a timeline and you're accountable.
Well, you said a whole lot of things,
Yeah.
and a bunch of them it's yes for, but I don't write it down. But people might say, oh, it's like everything's in its place. No, that's not it. But I'm really I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it could be like a 20 questions. Do you mean that you're blah blah blah? And the person just goes yes or no. Yeah. And then, but for me, I am very organized because I do have a plan and a timeline and like all those things. And I get so much work done, but my office looks awful, which is probably what people, if they came in my office, they wouldn't think I was organized. So it's kind of a good thing, maybe do that with a colleague, pick a statement like, I'm such and such, and have them ask questions to see, do you really understand? Oh, look at this. We won't even look at that slide. I don't know what happened there. But these are some of the strategies for using in a motivational interviewing session. And again, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but this is one of my absolute favorites, my importance or confidence ruler. And so the first thing you have to do is to make sure that it's important enough for them to change. So they would need like a score of like a 6, probably a 7 or above. But even if it's a 6, you can probably, they're probably like in contemplation or preparation, and you can work on things with that. But if they're like below a 6, it's really not important enough for them. And so they're not going to change. You just have to help them, to ask them questions to decide, is it important for them? Maybe they're not even realizing it. So willingness to change, or the importance to change, is the first step. And so I use this a lot with kids in school with homework. And so, I'll ask them, so the ones that aren't doing their homework, so how important is it for you to do your homework? And they'll be like, I don't know, a 3 or a 4, a 3, so 3 is not too good. Now, when I was in my CBT classes, what I learned that we're supposed to do is say, oh, you're a 3. Why aren't you a 5? Now, if I said that, if I went that direction, why aren't you the higher number? They would say, well, because I hate homework. Who wants to do homework? I want to play. It's boring. I know it all. So what you do in motivational interviewing is you say, oh, you're a 3. Well, you're not a 1. What makes you a 3 and not a 1? And when you say that, they say, well, sometimes homework helps you to learn it better. Or, oh, you get a sticker if you do homework. And they'll start telling you reasons to change. And then those are the things that you would reflect back. And so it's amazing how they do that. So
you are brilliant. This is all brilliant. And because I can just see myself going on the exactly what you said, like, why so low? Why a 3? And instead of, it would never, I think, pop into my mind of, oh, well, it's not a 1. Why, like, that's brilliant. I love it.
yeah, it's true. And that's what the change talk is. And I can't tell you how many kids I've done this with, before I retired, and it really would work. And so you'd say, something like, they say, well, sometimes it helps you to do math, makes it a little bit better. And then you might say, well, so sometimes it helps maybe. And they'd be like, yeah. Maybe sometimes. And I go, well, how many problems would you be willing to do? Now, I know we all modify homework, but most of the times we say to the kids, okay, out of these 10 problems, you have to do 5. That's not intrinsic motivation. This way is saying, how many problems would you be willing to do? And they'd say, like if there's like 10 problems, well, maybe I'll do 4. Maybe I'll do 2. And I would accept just exactly at first I would negotiate with the teacher and let the teachers know what I was doing. But when they saw it work, they let me do this. So even if they said 2 problems, I'd be like, okay, you feel you could do 2 problems. And so I'm treating them with respect. And they're like, yeah, I could do 2 problems. And I say, okay, tomorrow, come show me the 2 problems. I'd love to see them. And they come and show me the 2 problems. I go, oh, you did 2 problems. And then after a couple days, I go, do you think you want to do 3 problems? And I can't tell you how many of them will say, I'll do 5, because now we're like working together and they see good things about changing. And this one little boy, I remember this one year, he kept bringing all of his friends in. He was telling them, Dr. Moloney helped me do my homework. And and so some of the kids weren't quite as willing to change as him, but he kept getting me customers. So that's really, really a helpful thing. And I'm using homework that's an easy example, but it's a big problem in schools. It really is a big problem in schools. So I explained how to do it there. And I'm going to skip because we have, I wanted to get to some of these reflections. So these are examples of those strategies that I put over there, but this is what I wanted to show us now too. But I need a sip of water. So I love rolling with resistance. It's going to help you so much. And one time I remember I was in a session with somebody and I could not get this kid to change talk. And so we're digging in. And I'm like, roll with resistance. I'm like, I have no idea what to say. And I actually looked out the window and said, isn't it a beautiful day? Just because I couldn't figure anything out. And so then we just kind of had a little conversation, a positive conversation, and tried again at the next session. So really important to roll with resistance. But these reflections, the first 3, simple, amplified, and double-sided, are so important to use. And a simple reflection is just where you're going to reflect back what the person says, right? But an amplified reflection, oh my God, these are my favorites. It's where you like overshoot the response. And so you could overshoot it, and either the person will tell you you're wrong, that's not so, which is fine. Or most of the time, the client's going to backtrack then. So like, again, with kids who are like, my parents tell me, they control me. They tell me what to do all the time. Parents shouldn't tell their kids what to do. And I'd be like, parents should never tell their children what to do. Like I've overshot. And they go, well, I didn't mean that. Sometimes they could tell their children what to do. It's like, oh, when would you think they could tell their children what to do? And then they'll start talking about those kinds of things. Another favorite amplified reflection was when I was working with a teacher, and she's a first grade teacher, and this little girl, Gert, whatever her name was, Guinevere, I think I call her. This kid was really smart, but just kept getting in trouble. And the teacher would constantly complain about the kid. And I'd be like, Jill, do you want to do a behavior plan? We could do, no, it's not going to work. Oh, so this is like over a couple weeks. And then I'm passing her room and she pulls me and she said, the kids had just gone to art or something. She goes, I just have to tell you what Guinevere did today. Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, she's just loves to push my buttons. Nothing's going to change. She's never going to change. And I was like, how old is she, Jill? She's 6. And I was like, she's 6 and she's never going to change. And she looked at me and she said, oh, I just said that, didn't I? Oh my gosh. Now the thing is, you cannot be sarcastic when you say these things. Like, I'm sarcastic with my friends. I like to joke around, but in my, with the teachers, I'm like never sarcastic. I'm really respectful and even and really like, listen. So I could say those kinds of things and not sound like I'm being sassy to them. Like one of my colleagues, I was giving a presentation to them. She's like, I could never do that because they would think I was, being sarcastic. And I was like, so maybe if you're sarcastic in those situations, maybe you need to rethink that a little bit in general. But so an amplified reflection is like taking it to another level, and then they usually backtrack. And a double-sided reflection is where you acknowledge 2 things that they're saying that are like don't fit together. Like this one kid, he was short, and the teacher, his history teacher, this is in high school, told him he couldn't reach something because he's short, and the kid was very insulted and never would go back to the history class. So we were trying to get him to go back to the history class, and nothing, was working. And he would be like, so you don't want to go take your history class. We said that. And so, you won't graduate, and you want to get your diploma. So instead of saying, you won't go to history class and graduate, like you won't graduate, but yet you want your diploma, like that sounds like, what, are you crazy? That makes the person feel belittled. But if you say you won't graduate and you want your diploma, you're like putting this in front of them. Oh, my other hand's not there. You're putting this in front of them, these 2 things, for them to decide, oh, this doesn't make sense. So I feel like these things take a whole lot of practice. It just doesn't come to you in the moment unless you're really like thinking about it. But we have like 10 minutes left, and I just made a couple of statements that I've heard and think to illustrate different ways that you could reflect that could maybe take the conversation in different ways. And guys, please feel free if you want to give it a try too. But like if a parent is like, Joey does 5 hours of homework a night, and this parent's like really, really mad. What might people say in a meeting like that? Well, we don't want children really to do homework that long, but, they need to learn the skills, or, oh, we can try to modify it. Something like that is probably what you would say. But this parent's like really angry, and you want to understand the situation. So, if you just said back, Joey does 5 hours of homework a night, they're like, yeah, that teacher's crazy giving him all that homework. That's going to be the venting talk. But if you kind of be like, oh, you're concerned, like no child should do like 5 hours of homework, like, or what's making it take so long for you're concerned that what's making it take so long for your son to do his homework. The parent might have worries about something's wrong with her kid that is taking him 5 hours. So the way you reflect it back might get the parent to talk about it differently, like no child should do 5 hours of homework. And it's just a way of being like empathetic, as opposed to saying then, well, what happens while he's doing the homework? Because they might say, well, he looks around, and you're getting all that kind of information, but you're helping the parent from a feeling point of view. Or like if a teacher's like, Mary's been in 3 fights this quarter with kids that bully her. you, like, if you said, oh, she's been in 3 fights. Yes, she just can't keep her, temper. She when she sees those kids, she just gets really mad. But maybe the problem is really about the kids bullying her. So maybe you might want to reflect that. Oh, kids are bullying Mary. And then that's going to take that conversation in a different way. Or if the teacher's like, I can't believe it. This mom says she just can't help with the homework because she works the second shift. And this, we heard this a lot in my thing. If you say, mom can't help with the homework, they're going to say, no, can you believe it? Like, this kid needs help and his mom wasn't even going to help him. But if you say, oh, mom works second shift, yeah, I guess they really don't have a lot of money. Oh, yeah. Oh, that must be tough, for her to help with the homework. And like, well, yeah, I guess it would be tough, but he still's got to do his homework. Like, definitely, we got to help him with his homework. But, that might get the teacher to see that the mom really can't help with the homework. And we've got to get a different way, as instead of the teacher being really angry that the mom is just angry about the homework. Or a kid might say, this might be a teenager, like, I don't even know where to start. I'm just not doing this. So what might the regular teacher person, I don't want to say school psychologist because we wouldn't say these things, but they might say, well, you have to do this project in order to get your grade. Persuading with logic, right? It's just so easy to do. But if you do it from an accurate empathy point of view, you don't even know where to start. Then, like, in an empathetic tone, it's like, I am so overwhelmed. Whereas if you reflect it back, you're refusing to do this. You're not going to do it. They're like, no, I'm not going to do it. There's just too much stuff to do. My parents expect me to always be perfect. They don't have a clue. Any ideas? You guys want to say anything that you might reflect back?
Well, I wonder what you think about this, because my temptation is to add a little bit. So like if the student said, I don't even know where to start, I'm not going to do this. If you reflected, you're not going to do this because you don't even know where to start. If you did know where to start, and then like let him either fill in the blank or like, what do you think about? Is that too much?
Definitely. And you know what? Yeah, that's the kind of thing, like, I would kind of say something like that, like in 2 parts. Like, I would say, like, you don't even know where, like, and you have that empathetic tone. And I would say, like, I bet you wish you knew where to start. And they were like, yes, or like, I bet you wish you could just get this thing. I call that like mind reading, motivational interviewing. And actually that was a long time ago, before I was going to do my first presentation at our NJASP conference on motivational interviewing on a particular day. And the day before, it was a Thursday, we had a team meeting, and next door there was the principal's office, and he was in there with this little boy I'm going to call Derek, who had the day before that had started beating up kids in the classroom, and the principal had said, you're not going home on the bus, your parents need to pick you up today. But he ran on the bus, and the bus didn't know it, and they took it off. So first thing in the morning, he comes in the principal's office, and the principal, who was really fabulous, was wanting him to accept responsibility for what he had done. And you didn't hear what they were saying, but you heard the principal going, blah, 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 like an adult voice calm, and the kid going, I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. Why are you doing this? And like he's screaming. And we're like in this, a teacher, we were all teachers. We had no parents in our meeting. We're like, oh boy. And this is going on for like a half hour. And then the principal comes out, and he comes in and he says to the guidance counselor, can you come in and see Derek? And she goes, oh. So she goes into the room, and you hear a female voice going like, and they're like, I didn't do it. Stop it. Why do you always blame me? And you're like, and you guys are smiling because you know that this is what these kids say. And I'm like, oh gosh, he's going to call me next, the principal, and I don't even know this kid, wasn't anybody that I worked with. And tomorrow I'm presenting on motivational interviewing, and I'm a fraud, And so the principal comes and he's like, Dr. T, would you come in my office for a minute? Like, oh. So I walk in and I sit at the table and I'm just like, what am I going to do? And I just thought about MI for a second. And I thought to myself, kids want to do the right thing. And we have to help them like save face. And I said to this kid, I said, I didn't know him. Like I saw him in the hallway, and I would say hi to all the different kids. So I said, Derek, I don't really know you very well, but what I do know about you is you have a good heart. And he was like crying. And I said, and I bet you just wish you could take yesterday. You could erase yesterday. It's like, yeah, I wish I could erase it. And I said, I bet you are so sorry for, and I said his litany of sins, punching the kid and throwing the desk. And I'm sorry I threw the desk. I'm sorry I punched so. And he's just bawling and confessing to all these things because I did this wish thing. And I'll never forget my principal. He was sitting at his desk. He just looked and his jaw fell because seriously, it wasn't even 5 minutes. And that's what I call like the spirit of MI, if you keep that in mind. And so sometimes I feel like these reflections are what you think they're saying in their head. And you can kind of like just take a guess. Like I didn't say to him, you're sorry you did this. I said, I bet you are. I bet you wish you hadn't done that, and that. And he just confessed to everything. So that made me like, I think that's the mind reading spirit of MI.
Ever since going into psychology, like even in undergrad, people say, what's your major? And it's psychology. And they're like, oh, you're going to play mind tricks on me, or, oh, you're going to read my mind. And I was like, it's so ridiculous. But you are the reason that people have this feeling because you are a master. No, not in a bad way. But you are a master of like getting to the root of these things and kind of like sorting this out and going kind of in, some workarounds and going in the side door instead of like just, running in, guns blazing or anything like that. So, yeah. I love listening to you because I'm just sitting here like, I'm like, I want to be able to do these things. It's like a superpower.
You can, you definitely can. Yeah. The end of this, I have, the books, Miller and Rolnick are the people that develop motivational interviewing. And I actually like love the original versions because those are the ones I started with. There's newer ones. I forget, it's maybe the third or fourth edition. Fourth edition, I think, is out right now. But I, the old way. But if you read it and you just think about it and you do that, I love that accurate empathy. I think it flows. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I had fun chatting about this. I hope you guys did too. And I hope, it was productive and fruitful for our listeners.
I'm sure that it was. I know that it was for me. It's just so wonderful to have you. And yes, if I could channel your warmth and your kindness more regularly, I think I could get really good at MI. But you have this natural presence, Terry, and I'm grateful that you're here and sharing with all of us. And
thank you.
It was just really wonderful.
I really appreciate that. And I think both of you have that natural. Yeah. When I was in grad school, the first time for a master's degree in social work, there was a book, The Natural Helper. And it were those kinds of qualities that I think we all possess. And, if we really try to hone them in, we get better and better at it. Yeah. So thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about this today.
Beautiful.
So fun. I'm looking for any kind of last minute questions or comments and whatnot. I know we have some viewers watching in. I think everybody's just probably in awe, just like I am, of like, oh, this is so interesting. I'm already thinking about, how I can rephrase some of the ways that I do things and approach things.
Yeah. Good.
So yeah.
All right. And I think I put my email address on. If anybody wants to contact me in the future, feel free. Oh, thank you, Melissa.
Ah, that's wonderful. Yes, and apologies again for my botched introduction, but
Stop
we
it.
told Eric he's not here to defend himself, so
I just didn't want the 2018 person to feel like I took their honor away.
the wrong stage, and it's just, oh my goodness.
Alrighty.
Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us. Please, if you have questions after you digest some of this, put them in the chat or message us, and we'll continue the conversation over time.
Yep, and I'm looking at our next, I think we're down for 3-2, and I think we're going back to DBT. Does that sound right, Rebecca?
I think so. I don't have it open, but I'm sure it's right if you're looking at our.
Yeah, Mina Thomas and Lindsay Bordeaux,
yes,
right?
we're
I think
having
are
our-
returning.
Yes,
That's a
exciting.
great topic.
Yes, we'll add in some PB skills, and we'll get skilled up by the end of the school year for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you again, everybody. And if you all have snow coming to you, I hope that if you want a snow day, you get it. And if you really don't want a snow day, I hope that it bypasses you. So I'm kind of sick of the snow days. I'm done.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Bye.